there, it's Katie from Katie's Corner Travel Time. Thanks for joining me today. I wanted to share a little bit of what we've been up to. So, we're planning a 15,000 plus mile road trip to Alaska with a dog across 2 countries with a ton of unexpected detours and a 2000 Chevy Campervan. And honestly, we've already hit way more obstacles than I expected. But it's been a fun learning experience full of research, lots of research, and conversations with friends. So today I'm walking you through everything we figured out so far. The dog logistics, the route challenges, the budgeting, the gear, all of it. If you're planning a big road trip, even just thinking about one, this will save you a ton of time, I hope. So, a quick backstory. Joe and I have this long term dream of traveling full time one day. We can't embark on that journey until our doggo, Maggie, is gone. So, in the meantime, we converted an old 2000 Chevy Express 3500 into a camper van so that she could go with us. You may have seen some of our other trips in it. Nothing as extensive as Alaska, though. So, a few years ago, we took a cruise to Alaska and loved it. We knew we wanted to go back one day and spend more time. So, here we are. The idea of driving to Alaska has always been the big one, the trip you don't just wake up and do. It takes planning, money, timing, and honestly, courage. We're leaving from Florida. I've gone through multiple emotions leading up to planning this trip, and now, being less than 2 months from starting the trip, a lot of emotions are still popping up. So I wanted to document the planning process because most people only show the pretty parts of travel, but the planning, that's where the real decisions are actually happening. That's a lot of stress in the planning, or at least it is for me and for us. So I've got pages and pages of notes. If you follow along now, you'll be able and ready to actually see our trip this summer. Hopefully that'll be something you'll enjoy. Let's start with the biggest curveball. Traveling with our dog, Maggie. She's a decent sized dog, around 45 to 50 pounds. I knew it would have some complexity, but I didn't realize the entire trip basically would revolve around her. Naive, right? You'd think I know better. We've traveled quite a bit with two big dogs before, but this is next level traveling. I suppose it's easier now that we only have Maggie, who is the super chill, go with the flow, friendly dog, thankfully. Our pup we had to put down, she was not those things. We miss her, but this trip will be easier with just Maggie. First up, the border crossing. Both Canada and the U.S. have very specific rules. Vaccines, paperwork, microchip, and if you don't have one thing right, they can literally turn you around. So we had to get all of that lined up early. I'm still working on it. It's still a work in progress. I just sent off an email today to our vet to find out if they can do the certification of it's U.S. issued rabies vaccination form is what it's called. It is not the same form as a regular rabies vaccination certificate you might get from your vet to register your dog with your local jurisdiction. It is a specific CDC form, has to have signatures on it from them. I'm still trying to figure out if her microchip is acceptable or if we need to get an updated one. I've read 2 different things. I'm working through those logistics. Did you also know that dog food must be in its original bag? I read that it must be in a original bag that's unopened, but I also read that it doesn't matter as long as it's in the original bag. More research I have to do here, but do any of you know definitively? Then there's also the reality that a lot of national parks aren't really that dog friendly outside of the parking lots. You think they are because they say dog friendly, but they're really not. So we've had to reroute certain stops and swap some camper van camping for short-term rentals or hotels, allowing us to leave her safely in the room while we go explore. Because we can't leave her in a van in the middle of summer in a parking lot. Not safe. We've decided to board her at various times when we would be gone much longer than would be fair to her, and there aren't many sitters on Rover around some of these areas, so that has definitely been a logistic nightmare. Weather is another thing. Alaska and Canada can swing from cold to surprisingly warm, and leaving a dog in the van is not an option, especially in a parking lot. So we're planning a lot of our driving days and camping spots around temperature, shade, dog-friendly breaks. It's just another logistic thing that we have to think about. It's going to be in the middle of summer as we go through the lower 48 states towards Alaska. So boondocking, staying overnight somewhere without electricity, meaning AC, is also not a possible thing for us or for Maggie. I also realized that I should be mapping emergency vets along the entire route because once you get into northern BC and Yukon, you can go hours without services. This is something I'm actively working through now. I just like to have that. It's same thing with the hospitals. I like to know kind of an idea of where they are. By the way, dog food, I didn't realize how hard it might be to find the same brand in remote areas, so we're planning resupply points and bringing extra. But back to what I've read and I mentioned, does it have to be unopened? Perhaps I should buy more smaller bags versus larger bags? Working through that. If any of you have crossed the border with a dog recently, can you let me know what the actual rule is? An open bag or just original bag? Any other tips? And here's where my personality comes in when it comes to traveling. People love, love, love to give me grief for planning things out so much. I am a serial planner. I don't like wasting time on the trip trying to figure out what to do. I'm totally fine being flexible if something better comes along. I love local recommendations, but I still want to plan if that doesn't happen. And with Maggie, go with the flow can actually be unsafe. So planning isn't about being rigid, it's about being prepared. Yes, I'd love to be prepared. Part of my job, I guess. We did a trip to the Florida Keys in August of 2025, and we went to Key West for the day with no plans. I remember standing there with Joe, literally saying, "This is why I prefer to have a plan on what to do," as I felt like we wasted the majority of the day looking stuff up on our phones, trying to figure out what to do in literal 105-degree weather. It was miserable. Maggie was fine. We dropped her off with a rover. I don't want to repeat that. And so I like to have options for restaurants, activities, and if something better comes up, I'm happy to switch gears. I think people who've traveled with me would know that. Moving along now, let's shift into the route planning because this part shocked me. We went back and forth between the Alaska Highway and the Cassiar Highway. The Cassiar is more scenic, but more remote. The Alaska Highway is more reliable, but busier. We ended up choosing a hybrid approach, which it took a lot of research to kind of come up with this. We'll be taking the Alcan into Alaska and the Cassiar on the way back into the U.S. So gas stations along these roads are very far apart, sometimes 100 to 150 miles, and some close early. So we had to map out every fuel stop. We're in a big van, need to have gas because it doesn't go that many miles. I think we probably get 8 to 10 miles per gallon if we're lucky. So we also purchased the edition of the Milepost book, the new edition, which is published every year, documenting what is available along the route. The general rule of thumb is when you see a gas station that's open from Canada into Alaska and vice versa, stop and get gas no matter what. Doesn't matter how much gas you have, get gas. That brings me to my next point. The reason a book like this, like the Milepost, exists is because self-service along the highway does not exist. There are so many dead zones along the route and in campground areas that you have to be prepared ahead of time. So no looking things up on your phone or having GPS. That leads me to my next critical point. I'll be working on this trip, both in my W-2 job and my coaching business. This is not an all play, no work trip. I will be working every day. It's an extensive trip as we'll be gone for 4 months. And there's no way I could rely on self-service or my Solus hotspot, which I've used internationally a lot of times and on other trips, but not for this one. As a solution after extensive research, we decided to purchase a Starlink Mini so that we can stay connected virtually everywhere and while we're on the move. We've been testing it out on the dashboard of our local car rides right now, and so far it's been excellent. I just put it on the dashboard and that's it. But I have purchased a couple of suction cup mounts for our dashboard and interior window. Have not tried them out. We literally just arrived this past week. But if you have suggestions on how to make this work, please share. We also decided to get the Starlink aside from my work purposes so that we would have working GPS system. Like I said, you can't look up things like gas stations, emergency needs, or anything else along the way when there's no cell service. Although most phones do have an emergency satellite that you can call. Also, roads are very dangerous in some of these areas. They have frost heaves. Being a Florida girl, frost heaves are something I had never heard of before. They are here's the definition. They are upwards swelling of soil during freezing conditions caused by an increase in pressure of ice as it grows towards the surface, essentially making a very dangerous road condition that you have to travel very slowly and carefully despite being on a highway. It can literally bottom out your vehicle, and they flag the roads with orange and red flags where heaves are dangerous. So they're not playing around with this. Something to note on how long they will take you to drive these highways because of their conditions, and not just these particular areas, but the trip as a whole. Van fatigue is very real, which is becoming exhausted from driving a larger vehicle, traveling with a dog, just the whole road warrior fatigue. Just because Google Maps says it'll take a certain time does not mean it's accurate for a camper van. We have a lot of transit days just to give ourselves some space to only go a few hours to decide to go further if we feel up to it or stop. It's just important to have that built into the trip. Moving along, let's not forget about the weather. You want to leave late enough to avoid snow, but early enough to beat peak crowds. It's a tight window. We have simply accepted that we are not missing peak crowds and we'll make the best of it anyway. We plan to be in Alaska the last week of July and through August. going back into Canada at the beginning of September. Another reason for planning things out a little bit more detailed is because of things fill up. There's so many places that have already filled up by the time I started planning this trip. God willing, though, we will be visiting Glacier and Banff on the front end of the trip, then Yellowstone, and Grand Tetons on the return. And yes, why not? We'll be going to Niagara Falls in October. We plan for all of the weather possibilities because we're going to be going so many different places. Now let's talk money. Because this trip is not cheap, budgeting is a favorite topic of mine as a money coach, but I also lean in heavily into Ramit Sethi's rich life theory. So hubby Joe and I are budget travelers who don't compromise on experiences. We know that we're willing to spend extra money and where we're willing to stay on the lower side of a budget when possible. It's a great balance. We don't feel like we're missing out nor breaking the bank. That's our rich life. That's what it means for us. For this trip, not a rich life thing, but gas is a big expense. Canada is expensive. Alaska isn't much cheaper. We calculated the entire route's fuel cost so we aren't shocked later. But of course, gas prices have increased quite a bit this year already with the various world events going on. But it is what it is. The increase isn't enough to cancel a trip in our opinion. Although a lot of people seem to be moving in that direction. It is what it is. Food is another area where we're being intentional. I coach about meal planning, so we're prepping meals, planning leftovers, and trying to avoid eating out all the time. But we'll definitely enjoy local cuisine when it makes sense, but there will be a lot of lunch packing and using our stove at our campsite. I personally enjoy a meal cooked by my husband anyway, so it's not a big deal to me. The next biggest item is lodging. Hotels, RV parks, short-term rentals, campgrounds. This is a hybrid trip, as I mentioned earlier, because it's really dependent upon our activities and Maggie's safety. So we'll be doing a little bit of everything. I was hoping to find some house dog sits along the way, but sit dates on trusted house sitters aren't lined up for us. I initially found one early on that I was super, super excited about. Applied, received a reply complimenting us on our application. They said it's the best one they've ever received. Well, I give them so much detail. But they ended up canceling their plans and not traveling. So I was bummed. And we have not found a compatible opportunity since. I'm still hopeful, but it's okay. I've already got everything pretty much planned out. But if something comes up, I have notifications on. As mentioned, we don't necessarily forego tours experience. We have some splurge activities along the way because who knows if we will ever go back to this area again. I'll share more about those at another time. And then there are also the random costs like ferries, border fees, and showers. It just all adds up. And then, oh my goodness, let's talk about gear. That's been another journey, and we have already changed our mind on a few things. What we thought we needed versus what we actually need are two different things. And of course, since we haven't even left for the trip yet, we haven't confirmed anything for sure. But dog gear, safety gear, cold weather gear, it's a lot. We realized we needed a better dog bed set up for the car, for the van. So Maggie will have a big, comfy bed and a fan to keep airflow, so that way she'll be more comfortable. I still need to figure out a better water solution for her, as she gets thirsty frequently, and having a bowl of water is a mess waiting to happen. Don't ask me how I know, really. We added a ton of bear spray to our whole storage stuff, made sure our first aid kit was restocked and a better emergency kit. I'll also be getting a couple of fire blankets in addition to what's in the kits that we already have. I just rather be safe. We are planning to take our hybrid mountain bikes, but after talking with some friends about their trip that they did to Alaska, we've decided to leave those bikes behind and we purchased e-bikes instead. Our friends reminded us that we're from Florida and we're not used to big inclines and distances. Not to mention, we aren't avid bike riders as it is. So e-bikes will be helpful to run to a close-by store while leaving Maggie safely in a plugged-in van, so she'll have, AC or heat or whatever's needed. Or even just a quick ride to a bathhouse. These e-bikes will be something we don't know until during the trip if it was a good purchase or not, so stay posted. They also fold. That was one of the big things. We got folding ones. Not that small though, like bigger. Space is extremely limited, so we had to be very strategic. So we're still figuring out our storage solutions. And previous trips, it's been chaotic, primarily with clothes. So if you've done this trip or any camper van trips, please think about what gear we might be missing and share. That would be helpful. So that's where we're at. Dog logistics, route planning, budgeting, gear, all the different stuff that we have to do for planning a big road trip, especially an Alaskan trip. So if you're curious about doing any of these things or are planning on it, let me know what you'd like to hear next. Maybe we've already come across those things. And if you want to follow the actual trip this summer, stick around. It's going to be incredible. The good, the bad, because there will be some definitely bad. Like I said, not all things are pretty. But thanks again for joining me. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd love to have you as part of our travel community so we can share experiences, what works, what doesn't, and simply learn from each other. Have a great day, guys.